So now I'll call on Roxanne, the Executive Director, to present the Auditor's report, please.
Everyone received a copy of the Auditor's report this morning. It's included in the annual report, and you can find it in French à la page 29 and in English on page 29 as well. I'll be referring to the report throughout my presentation, so please have it in hand. And I'll begin with our financial position at the end of 2014. Please turn to the Statement of Operations, which can be found on page 34 of both the English and the French reports. NANB's day-to-day operations is reported under the General Fund column, which shows an overall surplus of $525,413. On the left-hand side of the page, under the 2014 and 2013 column totals, you will see the comparison of the 2 years. A few items I'd like to highlight. Membership fees for 2014 resulted in increased revenue. 2014 was the third year of our current long-range fiscal plan. And as you know, last year, members approved a long-range fiscal plan for 2015 through to 2017 that sees no change in registration fees. You will also note that the internationally educated health professionals revenue, you'll see that there, under the revenue side, as NANB continues to work with Health Canada on the development of materials related to the project I reported this morning in my ED update. The revenue is shown and then is offset by expenses below. And we continue to have activity on this project, which was a 5-year project and will be reflected in next year's audited statement as well. Under the expense section, I would also like you to note 2013 was our 2-day annual meeting and conference, and expenses reflect that, so that's why you see the variation expenses for 2013 and 2014. Expenses related to committees and projects were slightly down. A lot of activity is now conducted virtually. The employee wages and benefits line represents, the changes there are represented because of a change in staff complement. During 2014, we have had a staff member on educational leave for part of the year and one on-filled position. And we also made a second contribution to the New Brunswick Museum Nursing Collection in 2013, which is representative of the board's 5-year commitment to the nursing collection for 2013 through to 2017. I would now ask you to turn to page 32 in both the English and French report. This report reflects the statement of changes in our funds. NANB uses a funding model for funds that we're allocating to different areas in the organization. And the statement demonstrates the changes in the balances in those funds. This statement shows a balance in each fund at the beginning of 2014 and revenue and or expenses to that fund during the year or any transfers in or out of the fund and the ending balance of each of those funds. The 4 funds on the left side of this page are internally restricted and are not available to the ED for operations and require the approval of the Board of Directors prior to accessing them for any expenditures. Moving from your left, The CNA Biennium NANB Centennial Fund has an ending balance of $331,433, and those are dollars accumulated over almost a 12-year period from the last time NANB hosted the CNA Biennium and didn't have funds set aside for those responsibilities. So this money has been set aside to help us fulfill our responsibilities in hosting the Biennium in 2016. And a number of years ago, the board renamed the fund the Biennial and NANB 100th Centennial Fund so that we could set monies aside for both. The Employee Benefit Fund is a balanced fund, and it represents NANB's long-term obligations to its employees based on NANB personnel policies. And you will note it shows no balance because it's not dollars that are part of NANB operations or available to the organization. At the October 2013 Board of Directors meeting, a motion supported by the board to distribute the cash surplus at the time into the CNA Centennial and NANB Biennial Fund, the Capital Fund, and to place the remaining balance of including the Discipline Fund, sorry, I need to read what you wrote, Shelley, excuse me, and place the remaining balance into the Discipline Fund and rename this fund the Contingency Fund. This would allow for longer-term, more significant investment of those dollars, but to continue to have them set aside for any extraordinary expenses, including costs related to professional conduct review cases. So a number of years ago when NANB had, it's probably getting close to 20 years, NANB had a significant disciplinary case that went through many levels of appeal and costed nurses in the province about $250,000. And so those expenditures didn't happen in 1 year, but you can imagine they can have a significant impact on operations if you have to find those extra dollars that aren't planned for. So the Discipline Fund was established, but as the cash surplus grew, we realized creating a contingency fund where all those resources were amalgamated would be more efficient and we would be able to benefit from the interest they would generate. The current balance in this fund is $736,575. The capital fund established by the board in 2009 to plan for capital enhancements at NANB shows a balance of $425,419. The major capital renovations to NANB headquarters began in January of 2014, which saw enhancements to the NANB boardroom and meeting spaces to enhance our ability to conduct professional conduct processes. Following this, construction began on the installation of an elevator, as well as further cosmetic and structural improvements on the main floor. As a result, $308,661 was transferred into the general fund from the capital fund to support the cost of renovations, and the balance of expenses was covered out of our operating funds. On the right-hand side of this same report, just before the column titled Total for 2014, you will find the unrestricted fund, which is our operating fund. The beginning balance, or the unrestricted surplus, at the beginning of 2014 was $7,676. In 2014, the general fund surplus was $631,125. There were interfund transfers from the capital fund that I just shared with you of $300,661. And we made capital asset purchases. That's capital assets. This is all financial speak, right? But that's the cost of the renovations, purchasing an elevator, etc., of $913,156. The resulting cash surplus is now $26,306. Now if you could turn to page 30 of both the English and French report, we'll talk about our overall financial position. The total assets of you, the members of NANB, are equal to $6,413,815. These assets consist of any current cash or investments, accrued interest receivable, long-term investments, and our capital assets. This slide breaks down the capital assets and is a combination of the value of our building, the land it sits on, our office furniture, computers, and equipment. And except for the land, all categories on this report are subject to amortization or depreciation. Full details of capital assets can be found on page 40 of the English and French report under note 4 if you want to read the details later. The total liabilities and fund balances section of the Statement of Changes in Financial Position is made up of our accounts payable, membership fees collected before December the 31st that are reported as revenue for this year, and any fund balances. And that makes up the financial position. NANB has a current cash surplus of $26,306, as demonstrated on this slide. But it's important to underline we haven't spent all that money. As previously highlighted, the board approved the distribution of the cash surplus into the capital fund, the CNA Biennium and NANB Centennial Fund, and our new contingency fund. 2014 was another successful year for NANB as it relates to our finances. We held a successful AGM. We've supported scholarships, maintained a high activity of committee activity and face-to-face meetings with members, and continue to ensure the fiscal stability of our organization for years to come. Last but certainly not least, we've completed this major capital project which has enhanced the access to our building, especially given that we're health professionals, allowing for a better workflow as well and improved meeting space for board work and committee meetings, most specifically our professional conduct review processes. And this renovation will sustain the building for years to come. And I hope many of you will take the opportunity to visit today for the short tour. This ends the auditor's report. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Roxanne. I'd now entertain a motion to adopt the auditor's report. Do I have a mover?
France Marquis and Minston, I so move.
Microphone 5. Thank you, Heather. We have a mover and a seconder. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion? Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Now I'll open for questions. That may seem that I'm doing this backwards, but this is your annual audited financial statements. The numbers are what the numbers are, so you really can't change it. But now is your opportunity to ask lots of questions if you have in respect to how we are spending your money, what we've done with it, and where we're at today. So please, if you have any questions.
And you, the members of NANB, own your own building. You've owned it since 1998. You have 2 outstanding bills you pay on an ongoing basis for operations, the rental of a postage machine and the rental of a photocopier. And registration fees go to the operations and the enactment of our act and the support of nursing practice. So you sit in a very positive position. There's significant equity in the building, and these enhancements will enhance that equity. As well as you see, we've generated resources to allow us to entertain the nursing community in 2016 for the biennium, as well as celebrate our own centennial. So I hope you're very proud of those accomplishments, and that's what you've all accomplished together. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. I'd now ask Teresa Harris, the chairperson of the Resolutions Committee, to come forward, please. Oh, I'm jumping right ahead. While you're coming up, Teresa, no, still come up, Teresa, I have one more business. Yes, thank you. That's right, we do ask you to reappoint the auditor for the next year. Yes, we were moving, yeah. Okay. It'll just be a minute, Teresa. I have one more business that I need to deal with before we start the Resolutions Committee. So the current NANB auditors, Nicholson and Beaumont, and I'd ask the Assembly to entertain a motion to reappoint the firm of Nicholas and Beaumont as NANB auditors for 2015. If someone wants to move the motion, please. Microphone 3. Thank you, Amy. Microphone 4.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Martha. We have a mover and a seconder. Any further questions on the motion? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Contrary minded? The motion's carried. Thank you.